itself is a little bit quicker and more streamlined.
Okay,
Mayor just walked in, so I'm sure he's trying to dial in.
Okay, we are good on YouTube. So we want to wait for the mayor and Henry. Let me see if they are
Henry, I see is on.
okay.
And there's
I'm
Troy.
here. Let me walk over to his office. He needs help. Okay,
Thank you, Aaron. Well,
I'll be right back.
okay, no, that's Mickey.
Yeah, Tina.
Yes,
Hi. I don't have that transfer for Kavanaugh McDonald. Is that why you logged in?
yeah, well, I got an invitation. I think that it's related to the addendum that was approved by Common Council on the 23rd.
The building and facilities resolution.
No, it was just for pension calculations, but if I need to come to the next one, that's okay too, but I had gotten.
Yeah, I remember we had that discussion and I searched high and low in my emails. I could not find it. So if it's not a pressing matter for tonight, you're free to go and I'll make sure it's on the July 10th one.
July 10th.
Not
Okay.
July 3rd, because nobody will be here. July 10th
Come
for
on.
the next meeting.
Sorry, Tina.
Sorry about that.
No problem at all. I'll put it on for July 10th so that, and I'll send you everything that I have so that we can go from there.
Okay.
All right,
All right.
thank you so much.
Tom, you want to start the recording and then we'll get going? Okay, welcome to the June 5th, 2023 regular meeting of the Board of Estimate and Tax. Thank you all for joining. Madam Clerk, will you call a roll, please?
Mayor Rilling,
Here.
Mr. Abrams,
Here.
Mr. Constant,
Here.
Mr. Blair,
Here.
Mr. Gilleret,
Here.
Mr. Casimis,
Here.
Miss Yang,
She's muted.
Here.
7, we have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, we've got a very full agenda tonight. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the May 1, 2023 minutes. Can I have somebody move that item for discussion and approval?
So moved.
Thank you, Ann. Any changes, additions, corrections to the minutes from the May 1 meeting? All right, seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as provided, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions?
I abstain. I was not there.
Thank you, Artie. Minutes are approved. All right, the next item on our agenda is a special appropriation. Can I get that item moved for discussion,
So
please?
move.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, would you read the resolution into the record, please?
Resolution requesting a special capital appropriation in the amount of $2 million by the Buildings and Facilities Department for the following improvements at the new South Norwalk School, formerly the Hatch and Bailey site, at the intersection of South Main Street, Meadow Street, Wilson Avenue. Letter A, $1 million for intersection traffic improvements to be allocated to TMNP. Letter B, $1 million for intersection flood improvement to be allocated to DPW. Red indicates amended language since public notification on May 25th, 2023.
And that amended language reflects specific information regarded to at the intersection of South Main Street, Meadow Street, and Wilson Avenue. and the specifics of the allocation of $1 million to TMP and $1 million to DPW, just because we don't see the resolution necessarily in the audio or in video. Tom, is there anybody here to speak on it?
Yeah, Alan Lowe is, but let me just provide a little clarification there. So when we do the special appropriations, we have to put an ad in the paper a week in advance, which I did. And then after that, Alan and I talked to add some language, not changing any of the dollar amounts, but just for a little bit of clarity and specification on where the money's coming from and where the money's going to. So I don't know if any additional motions or need to be made for the amendment, or if it's okay since no dollars changed. Anybody have an idea on the protocol on this? So the only difference is what was in the paper compared to the red letters or the red wording.
But Tom, the approach that we're using is not any different than what was originally decided or put forward.
Sorry, Jim, I couldn't quite hear you.
So there is no difference between what was originally intended and just adding this verbiage on how to do it. I mean, in other words, you didn't change the methodology for how you're going to fund this from someplace else.
No, it's just a little bit of clarification to make it clear where the money's going to. It's not going to the Sono school. It's going to two different areas where we're going to facilitate improvements before the school gets built.
Right.
Just the revision provided a bit more clarity than the original resolution.
All right, so Alan Lowe is here. You want to take it away, Alan?
Oh, sure. Good evening, everybody. I'm Alan Lowe from the City of Norwalk Building Management. I think most of you know we've been working on this South Norwalk School project for probably 3 years now. We are in the design phases. We acquired the Hedge and Bailey property about a year ago, and through the design phases, there's some of the common comments that comes up through the process is about the intersection. It's within the flooded area. Elevation is 12. We're like a corner of the property is actually within the flood zone, and also the the intersection where the flooding happens. The intersection configuration is very awkward. There's a retaining wall on the side, which used to be a railroad abutment, and also they don't align properly. Through our design process, we had a traffic study done, we had a drainage engineer look at everything else. We generally speaking not contribute, the school itself not contribute anything to that intersection. But the problem is that intersection, the way it is, and then the impression the public has, as well as like functionally, there are some issues. It does get flooded on time to time with a heavy rainstorm and high tide. The intersection flooded. I don't know how often, but it does flood. And but we don't hear a lot about it. The reason being is there's no resident at that intersection. It's just one industrial property. So they're aware of it, and they just don't put anything on that corner of the property. And it does affect the wheel buses go through, because you get flooded. So it happened, I don't know how many times a year, but that's a concern. And also the configuration, it's the general public has this little bit of quality of life, and as well as traffic concerns when you go around come down South Main Street at the intersection. You have to stop. The sight line is bad. You got to make a right turn. You may have to stop again because Meadow Street Extension, there's car coming out, kind of thing. So all that doesn't help when we put a school in there. At the same time, these are existing conditions, so we don't consider that's part of the school's responsibility. But these are things that the city should address. At the same time, is that the school project, building a school would be beneficial, and if we don't fix these things, this could be impacting on the school operations. So with that in mind, I went through our budget for one project that we are closed out with the city, a bonus school project. We are closed out within the city, but we are finishing the reimbursement process with the state. So we have $1 million left. I think $1,039,000. There's one little thing we need to take care of, bonus school, but we can move $1 million out of that project. And Jefferson School will finish. We haven't closed out yet, but we have about $3 million or so left. So we can take $1 million out of that to be designated for those repair and design and improvement at the intersection. Again, these are existing conditions that traffic as well as the DPW need to focus on. So we are providing some money to assist since it impact the school system, the New South North School. So we thought it's appropriate to take some of the surplus from the other project to help out the process. So both the city, DPW and traffic will benefit from this because it helps them to get the project started, design, and find ways to solve these issues.
Thank you, Alan. Questions for Alan?
Just quickly, I'm familiar with that area, and will you need to raise the level of the roadway at that point?
I leave it to DPW has not doing designing yet. So part of this money will help them to start hiring an engineer and to start looking at it. I think I'm not speculating, but based on the information I gathered for the last 6 months or so, I think the problem, generally speaking, would be there's a pipe that comes from the intersection to the wetland inlet area. I think it's siltation is the more the problem. Most likely, the dredging would be required at the outfall. Okay, so South Main Street is 1 block away from the shoreline. So the inlet have phragmites growing in it and siltation. So the elevation of the outfall point, it's getting higher and higher. So I got chances are the dredging may be required in the future.
Which is expensive and would require deep permits.
Yeah, the Army Corps engineers, because once you get the water right away, it'll be and then also dumping of the stuff. Chances are it will be, it's not really clean material kind of thing because it's siltation for the street. So they have to be dredged and dumped into a certain part of the Long Island Sound that's permitted and capped. So again, this is a long process, but in order for them to start, then this money will help. I have no idea how much, whatever it is, but it's something the city needs to do sometime in the future. I mean, in the past, actually, because it's been flooding. So it's beginning of a process. So I think DPW, this will help them to get design, do analysis, design, and then get the permits, and then figure out what it costs to take care of this problem.
I agree. It needs to be done clearly because there's going to be so much traffic for the school. But I guess it's also a heads up for all of us that there's probably going to be more expense on the line if we're looking at improving the outflows to make sure that the water heads in the right direction. Because that spot is probably the lowest spot on Meadow Street.
Right. Fair point. Additional comments, Jim?
Yeah, I was going to just follow up with what Ann said. I worked on some study of some contamination on the property that FedEx was located on. FedEx moved out of that place a little bit further down on Meadow Street. And that was definitely contaminated with a lot of oil and other nasty stuff. So there's no doubt in my mind that there's going to be some contamination on that property. And I'm just concerned that if we don't know what's there right now, I think I know what's there, but going into this thing, it's definitely going to cost a lot more money than $1 million.
Again, you asked the question, I gave the knowledge I have, but until the engineer go out, the evaluation and test things, whatever, we actually had camera the line that from the intersection, there's like 12 catch basins at the intersection, and all lead to one line, I believe the 30-inch line going into the inlet area, the flat mud flats area. Yeah. So, and I think certain time I think most of the time there's water in the pipe. So what it means is that the outfall area, siltation to build up the level that it actually be above the outlet elevation.
Right.
So that's why leading to me to say that chances are it's dredging. Until such time that the engineer go out and physically do the testing and street grade elevations out there, we don't know, but most likely that is the problem. So again, this money will be more than start the project. We'll do the engineering and stuff and identify what the problem and the solutions are. And again, it could be multiple $1 million if all you need is dredge one specific area, because it could be the siltation coming up from the pipe and just dump right in front of it. And then, once you take that pump out, you may be clear. I don't know, but until such time, it's purely speculations.
No, understood, Alan. I think just the board's caution here is that based on history and other experiences in that area, we're likely going to need to look at significantly more cost, and we ought to be thinking about that, not solving for it, but thinking about that right now as well. Okay. Any other comments regarding this item?
Yes, unrelated, but Water Street. I know that it's in the same area, but I know that street to be flooded all the time whenever there's a storm, and there's always a car stuck there or someone's car damaged. Is that on the DPW's radar?
You're asking the wrong person. Sorry about that. I know that when they do all all the buildings on Water Street, all the elevation of the buildings are raised so that avoid that issue. Where even flood elevation typically 12 for flood insurance purposes and all that stuff. Until we change the name of the street, it's still going to have water, I believe.
Kendrick, to your
I'm
point,
being
I
funny.
can only comment as to what I've seen in the press, and that is that the city is looking at that whole area for addressing issues, making it better for the public, et cetera. So it's not really germane to this point, but to your question, I know at least what's in the press indicates that the city is looking at that area.
Okay, thanks.
Any more questions specific to this resolution?
I just have a quick question in terms of accounting. The money that's coming out of the schools, and it's coming to DPW and the other ones, correct? Is that
Yes,
something
DPW
that,
and
does
TM.
the Board of Ed have to approve that, or Alan, or is that just city money anyway?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. The city, through the city charter, had determined that major construction projects had fallen on the responsibility of city of Norwalk. So Board of Ed would typically request a project, let's say Columbus School, or no, let's say Cranberry School. So they would make the request to the city, and the Common Council would approve the money for a project. From then on, it's the city responsibility to manage the accounts. So in fact, Board of Ed does not and cannot go to account and withdraw money or spend money from those capital budget account. So it falls fully on the responsibility of the city of Norwalk. So there's a separation in terms of financial responsibility and expenditures. So it is fall within our jurisdiction to make these approval, and they are aware of this, by the way. Just for information, it's very cooperative effort between me and the Board of Education. So it's not like they don't know about it. It's also to their interest that Columbus School, once it's built, those intersection improvement and DPW requests in terms of drainage and traffic requests to look at the intersection. It's all to the benefit of the project as well. So there's mutual benefit. So again, technically, to answer your question, technically, no, we don't. There's no written city charter that said they are required. At the same time, there's no written thing about whether we could or not. But it is set up that the city traditionally in the past was under North Facility Construction Commission. That's how the charter, the ordinance is set up. So we are continuing the same general policy that the city is responsible for expenditures of these school funds.
Okay, thanks.
Alan, one last question, comment for me. You indicated, I believe, that there's about $3 million left in the Ponus Ridge School Improvement Project budget, of which you want to take $1 million. Are there plans for that other $2 million, or can we hold those funds in reserve for some of the concerns that have been expressed here about what the actual costs may be as we get into this project?
There are things that we are looking at that will require some funding. I have no problem talking to the board estimate about, but there are projects that there's some very specific land acquisition that we're looking at that we don't want to talk about at this point. The reason being is that affect personal property and things like that. So at some point in the future, I have full responsibility to come back to the board estimate to advise you what the money is intended to be used. But at the same time, is that because their potential land acquisition, it's not, generally speaking, it's not for public information because the property owner doesn't know about it yet. We still have to figure out doing appraisals on the property and things like that. So it's a little bit sensitive in terms of real estate negotiation and all that.
Understood and appreciate that. Again, was just kind of looking for, are there funds in reserve? Should we run into cost overruns on this project?
I'm fully aware. I mean, the city and the staff are not here to dictate how we spend money. But at the same time, it's that when we work on this project, we do everything to hold the line in terms of financially. And I think there are different places that the funds are needed, and we are looking at those things very carefully. So again, we will continue. I will continue to advise the BET on these concepts. But of all of the ones, this is the harder one to answer.
Okay, thank you. Any additional comments for Alan? Seeing none, Tom, to your point earlier, do we need to approve this resolution, or has it already come before us and it was just modified?
No, this is the first step in the process. Then it will be finance and claims. And then planning and zoning, I believe, on June 21st. And then that's the third of four steps. The final one will be the full common council on the 27th.
Tom, I'm sorry, Tom, I don't mean to
Oh,
just for information, planning and zoning is looking at zone changes on the 21st.
Oh, that's right.
So
Yes, we discussed
most
that.
likely they won't be able to have time to look at this request. I don't think they're taking any items besides the zone change evaluations. So I think most likely we'll go to planning and zoning in July. So.
Okay, thank you. All right, all in favor of the resolution as read into the record, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Resolution's approved.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Alan. All right, next on our agenda is a series of transfer items beginning on page 19. I'd like to suggest that we move the whole transfer agenda, review everything, and then approve it either in totality or with any amendments we want to make. Is that acceptable to the board? Okay, that being the case, can I get someone to please move the transfer items for discussion? Thank you, Jim. All right, Tom, you want to lead us through this?
Yeah, the first one is for the mayor's office. They had several workstations installed, and while we are looking at that transfer, we'll take the opportunity to clean up a few other small overruns. Normally, we wouldn't make transfers in the amount of $200 or $100 in this case, but while we're at it, we might as well clean them up. The mayor is here to discuss the 3 workstations. And these funds are coming out of underruns in their full-time salary. We had budgeted the new DEI officer for the full year, and she didn't start until late October, so we have some available funds there to cover this transfer. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Mr. Mayor.
Doesn't look like he is.
Well,
It might be that his headphones aren't connected.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't think his microphone's working.
so clearly these new workstations and the headsets that came with them are working very well.
I don't think he got one of the new workstations.
He looks like an air traffic controller.
He does, either that or he's selling magazine subscriptions.
All right, now it's showing that you're on mute. Now it's showing you're off mute.
No, we still can't hear you. I think it's probably your Bluetooth connection to your headset.
Irene, you want to explain this?
No, you got it. We can speak
You
to you.
got
You
it.
can hear us now, Mr. Mayor.
You can hear it now. Okay. All right. I was yelling out to Irene to see if she wanted to explain it. Okay. Let me go back to my agenda here. It's pretty cut and dry. We had some renovations done in the office to make the traffic flow more smoothly when it comes to working. As you can see, it's a very nominal amount. Everything's already been done, and we had plenty of money left in our wage and salary account full time. So if there's any other questions, I certainly can answer them.
Just one, I assume that workstations at 7,500 roughly are below the cap for capital expense versus taking it out of a wage and salary line, where there's no issue there.
No, Tom, I don't think there is, right?
Yeah, I think the threshold for us is 20,000.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
On the Board of Ed side, I think it's 5,000, but we're fine here.
Okay. Any questions regarding these proposed transfers? Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and sorry about your technology issues. Hopefully the new workstations will help.
Thanks.
All right, next on the agenda, we have a series of transfers from the police department. We have Mickey Dosmo on the line, basically taking various amounts from a whole number of different accounts and departments within the police department, transferring them all over to other operating. Similar story to what we've heard in the past on the supply chain issues and inflation. I think Mickey is on the line. He is. Mickey, all yours. 37,000 in total, folks.
Hi, everyone. I know this is a full agenda. I'll be quick. This is my routine end of the year, cleansing of the accounts. The chief has prioritized our ongoing supply chain issues, as Director Ellis said, to get ready for our fleet issues and, again, trying to fill our fleet. 8,000 is also for a special munitions shield. We've sort of put kind of a hold on all other spending, having this as a priority. We've been in front of you the last 3 or 4 months with similar issues, and I wouldn't be surprised if I'm back in July for the same thing. But this is, like I said, my routine end of the year stuff, and nothing has changed. This is just a continue of gathering of the money for that purpose. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mickey. Questions, comments for Mickey?
Are we talking about bulletproof vests again?
No, we're not. This is for one shield. $8,000 is for one shield, and the rest will be for accessories for the fleet issues, which we've spoken about the last couple of months.
So these are shields on the cars?
No, there's $8,000 for one special munitions shield, and the other 37 is just for the various accessories for the cars, computers, lights, sirens, just whatever goes into the upfit of the fleet.
I mean to belabor this, but could you just explain to me what the shield is? What are we shielding?
The shield is for ESU. It's a special defense against munitions. That's about all I know about it. I'd be happy to get more detail.
Is it on a car or you hold it?
No, it's like for going into a high intensity, dangerous situation to protect.
Like a shield? It's just like a shield that an officer would carry?
Yes, that's exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Exactly right.
now I know what it is. Okay.
Sorry for the confusion.
Yeah, Mickey, you alluded to the fact that as you clean things up, you'll probably be back to us again in July. But, as you said, this is the 3rd or 4th time you've been before us with transfers to address the fleet upgrade and uplift. Do you have any idea when, and I know it's all dependent upon supply chain and everything else, but do you have any idea when this is going to end and we're not going to continue to have to move money around for the fleet?
I'd really like to think by the end of this fiscal year, we'll have everything in order. We'll have a really good idea of when things are coming and how much the final cost will be. I really expect by the next meeting, there'll be nothing left to chance. And, we appreciate all the flexibility you guys have given us on moving stuff around to allow us to properly properly dress the fleet and the upfits. And believe me, it's as big of an issue as it is for us as it is for you. It's just an ongoing battle that we've been fighting really since COVID. And I think we're almost to the end now.
Good, thank you. Any additional questions or comments for Mickey? All right, Tom, do we want to move to the next item?
Yeah, so the next item is for the fire department. Chief Gatto is not in the British Virgin Islands, but he is overseas, so he's not with us this evening. But anyway, they are significantly under on their overtime for the firefighting account. Similar staffing issues as we've discussed in the past. Looking for $72,000 to transfer over to their other repair and maintenance account. for some emergency repairs on one of their cars, as well as a variety of improvements to their ladder truck. And we have Assistant Chief Ed McCabe with us to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, just exactly like Tom said, this transfers to cover emergency repairs to our frontline command car and also to one of our frontline ladder trucks. Both repairs need to be completed as soon as possible to keep these rigs safe and in service. So we are suggesting moving the money from the overtime account, which we are under. Since we were able to put some new firefighters on this year, our overtime is down. So I can answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Deputy Chief? All right, seems like we're all okay with that one. We're breezing right along here.
Thank you.
I'll go to Corporation Counsel.
All right, so this one is a transfer from wages and salaries, both full-time and part-time. They are significantly under in both of those accounts. They've been short an attorney for the better part of the year, and are trying to settle up as many of their tax appeals and other litigation that's been going on. So they are looking for $125,000 from those two payroll accounts to be transferred over to other professional services for outside counsel. Mario could not join us tonight, but we do have Jeff Spar here to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, guys. Tom pretty much summed it up. Wanted to emphasize that this is not a request for an additional amount of money for special appropriations, an internal horizontal transfer. A lot of it had to do with the excess expenses that were incurred in the Poco Milligan litigation, which has now come to a close. There was the need to hire expert witnesses, a lot of depositions. We also had to have outside counsel. As I said, that has come to a close. As part of the settlement, though, the good news is that the city will be getting a payment of $675,000 coming back into our coffers, so that'll be good. As far as the internal transfer, Tom also mentioned the fact that we are down an attorney. I think that actually an attorney and a half in a way. So that necessitates us. We had lost Brian McCann, who was the one that was doing a lot of our tax appeals. So we've had to go outside for a lot of attorneys to handle the tax appeals, in addition to the real estate appraisals that take place. We're slowly winding down. Of course, there'll be a new reval that'll be coming up, but right now we're winding up this fiscal year. So that's basically it. The outstanding litigation and professional services that include not only attorneys, but as I said, appraisals.
Thank you, Jeff. Questions or comments for Jeff?
I have a question relative to the Milligan suit. So if $675,000 is coming in, what do you estimate as being our out-of-pocket expense? And if you were to estimate in terms of dollar amounts, the internal, staff expense on that lawsuit. So are we net out $1 million, $500,000? Are we even?
No, first of all, let me just say, not trying to duck the question, but thank God I didn't handle the Milligan case. But my understanding was through Mario, he couldn't make it tonight, that we had an agreement when we had outside counsel. Now, this isn't like the experts or thing, but for the outside counsel, that they were going to cap it at 450. So I don't know if we reached that at all, but I do know it wasn't supposed to go past the 450. So there would be a net of 220, well, whatever, the 175 past that. So it's 675, so more than that. So anyhow, I don't know the exact that we spent, but I know it was going to be capped at 450.
So given additional expenses and internal time, we're maybe even.
Yes, but again, I didn't handle the litigation. I know that it was taking place for years, and there's the potential of one of the former defendants in this case bringing a claim back against the city, so that may not completely have gone away silently, so we'll see. But a lot of it also has to do with the tax appeals as well. When somebody files a tax appeal, in this particular case, sometimes we have to hire outside counsel, but one of the main costs is, we have to get real estate appraisers. We try to hold on as long as we can by just using what our internal appraisals are. But when it comes time to go to court, rather than having our tax assessor, which also who is no longer with us, we're dealing with an assistant tax assessor. We hire outside people for appraisals, and some of these are very complicated. They're not just residential. I mean, you have something like the Norwalk, Sono Collection Mall. That's just a monster to hire for somebody. So there's a lot involved.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Additional questions or comments for Jeff? Thank you, Jeff. Good to see you again, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Thanks for everybody.
Yeah, the marching band connecting. Okay, what do we got next? We have health administration. This is, we got Deanna Demore here tonight to talk to us. Everybody's seen the headlines. There were a couple of fires that resulted in some displaced families over the last month or so. They too have a pretty good underrun on their wages and regular full-time wages and salaries, and looking for a transfer of 48,000 to their condemnation account. Deanna, all yours.
Thank you so much, Tom. So as Tom mentioned, I'm sure you saw in the news, there were 2 fires impacting large multifamily housing units. And so the health department's been working on relocation. There were 27 adults in total, I believe, that were impacted by these fires. So a large amount of units and people to work on relocating. We still have some remaining that need to be relocated. Several have been able to return to their units, but some have not. So this is based on costs that we've already incurred and then some estimates for the remainder of this month.
Thank you, Deanna. Questions for Deanna?
The displaced, the cost for the displaced individuals, is that because that housing was owned by the city?
No, thank you for that question. So we're obligated under state law for if anyone has to be displaced due to code enforcement activity. So if there's a fire and a unit is uninhabitable and the city, whether it's the fire department, code enforcement building, health department, we've deemed it uninhabitable, the city is responsible for relocating those families and for costs incurred, to put them up in hotels until we can help assist them then find either wait till they can go back to their unit or find different housing.
Is there a cap to that, or is it indefinite?
So it's tricky because, there's benefits that you can give, like $4,500 per person plus, moving expenses, but then other times it's, based on the length of the time it takes to find them housing. It has to be comparable housing within the location. So it can be a little greater than that, depending on how long they have to remain in a hotel and how tricky it is to find the new housing.
Okay. Is this 48,000? Do you expect it covers the duration until they can go back in, and when it gets the building gets renovated, or you don't really know?
For Cedar Court, we think there'll be 2 units that will require permanent relocation. So we should be, depending on how long it'll take, it's hard to tell. It's hard to estimate. So I don't have a really great answer to you, but we think it'll cover us at least within this fiscal year, and we'll remain working and hoping to relocate people as soon as we can.
Is there any opportunity to recover these funds from the insurance that is covered by the buildings?
So we work with the law department whenever we need to, the legal department, in order to recoup some of these costs, depending on, on it. So that's something we typically do with a building. If it's, due to the landlord's responsibility or something related to the building, we're able to recoup those costs or potentially put a lien on the property as well.
Do you know whether or not that's applicable here? It's for Cedar Crest or the other fire?
I'm not sure at this point.
Okay.
Any additional questions for Deanna?
Deanna, are you hiring outside help to deal with the volume of the displaced people that you're getting? Or is that all done in-house? Is any of that 48,000 for outside services, or is it just for the cost of housing these people?
It's just for the cost of housing at this point. Some of it might be, it could be helping to put a deposit on a new housing situation or moving costs, but it's all that. We do partner with, obviously we're part of community services, so the Human Services Department, they have, community resource specialists that help with other needs. So working with other community partners related to food access, senior center and others that are assisting with those.
So you don't have to hire any other people. This is just whatever the cost of hotels, food, deposits, whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, Tom, let's move to finance and IT. Tom, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
That better?
A little bit, thank you.
I'm guilty as charged. Joyce is here to talk to these, but an overview, similar to what we've just seen is, they're underrunning on their full-time salaries by quite a bit and have a few cleanups that they would like to take care of, as well as to cover some overtime charges for the cost of supporting the night council and committee meetings, which we are trying to transition from. Right, Joyce? So take it away.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So there is a total five fund transfer from IT's full-time salary wage in this request. So the first four items, it's just a cleanup of the year end for our negative account, and due to the unexpected increased hardware and software costs. A lot of software now is by subscription based per user. So when there is so we need to add additional license for the new hire or part-time employees. So item 7 is to cover our overtime for the IT staff hosting the night meetings for the various committees. So IT staff have hosted total 60 committee meetings as of the end of May. Since committee meetings hosting is not part of our budget. So under our budget, so I discussed with Tom about the option what we have. So instead of charging back to all the committees, Tom suggests we just transfer fund from the IT's full-time salary account to cover the meeting hosting costs.
Going forward into the next fiscal year, we're going to treat that differently, because I would imagine, Tom, we're going to stay at least in a hybrid format for a lot of these meetings. So is that included in budgets properly for each of the committees, et cetera?
Not, you want this, Joyce, or I can give a
No,
little
go ahead.
bit.
Go
All
ahead.
right, yeah, no, just so post COVID, before everybody was up and running on Zoom, it was the burden was entirely on Joyce's team. As time's gone by, she has strongly encouraged the various departments and committees to run their own meetings. So I'm doing that now for this one. Chitsame does finance and claims. There's still a handful that Larry Manzi or others chip in on, but the idea is to get everybody to be self-fulfilling and minimize this type of thing, or the overtime burden, at least on Joyce's team.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for Joyce? Okay, thank you very much, Joyce.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, can I go next for the $550,000 transfer? I have a council meeting starting in 14 minutes.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
So
yeah, just a
yes.
quick overview there. Mid Fairfield Mental Health Initiative. This is something the mayor and Mr. Livingston have been working on for a bit. And this money is coming from contingency. If approved, it will be a new org ID in Munis. So we don't really have anywhere to transfer to right now, but assuming approval, we'll take care of the administrative side of it. Mr. Mayor, all yours.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, this is during the budget process. I think we all remember that a lot of the concerns expressed by teachers and parents and school board members was the fact that young people during COVID experienced isolationism. They were just it was a challenge for everybody. And the Mid-Fairfield Child Guidance Center had been in the past providing embedded social workers in the middle schools so that they can help the children that might need help. They're usually some of the more troubled children that were in middle schools, which is a very difficult time of their lives anyway. This was going to be the victim of some of the funding that wasn't provided in the original request by the Board of Education. We started talking about it and felt that if we could take some out of contingency, because we did not use a lot of the contingency this year, it would be helpful, and we would, the city, have the contract with Mid-Fairfield Child Guidance for a 1-year period.
And that period begins and ends when, Mr. Mayor?
Well, that'll start with next school year.
Okay, so it'll run through the entire upcoming school year.
Correct.
Questions, comments for the mayor?
I applaud the effort, and I think it's a terrific thing to do for the kids, because I know that there are a lot of issues. The only question will be is, will we be able to stop this service at the end of the year?
Well, again, it's the understanding this is a one-off, and that the city of Norwalk has agreed. Well, we offered to provide this for the Board of Education and for the Norwalk Public Schools because we heard a lot of the parents' concerns about mental health issues for their young people, and we listened to what they had to say, and we feel this is the right thing.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ann.
Thank you. No, I think it's a very important initiative, because there is a lot of issues with kids in schools, as we've seen with the number of suicides more recently because of COVID.
Mr. Mayor, is the intention, Mr. Mayor, that following this coming fiscal year, the Board of Education would be planning for this type of assistance within their budget on an ongoing basis?
It has been in their budget on an ongoing basis, and we believe that they will be looking to continue the program, I would imagine, based on their analysis of need. We'll have, I'm sure they'll have those discussions in their budget requests coming up.
Okay, very good. I'd just like the record to reflect the point you already made, that this is a one-time stopgap offer from the city, not an ongoing agreement.
Right, correct.
Any additional questions or comments for the mayor? Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good luck with your next meeting.
Thank you. I'll be leaving now, so I'll go upstairs.
Thank you. All right, Tom, do we want to loop back to the registrar of voters?
Yeah, so then our final item, unlike the other areas, there's no money available in their salary accounts. As you know, when we budget for the registrar's office, it's not for any extra or unplanned elections. And we had that last fall. So we have Stuart Wells and Brian Smith on the line to give you a little more background in this and take any questions. Go ahead, Stuart.
Okay, basically you don't put primary elections in our budget because in general, you don't know whether you're going to be holding them until after the budget is set. For instance, we're going to have another one in the next cycle for the presidential primary, which will be in April. But is there going to be one on the Republican side? Almost certainly. You follow the news, there's a ton of candidates. But on the Democratic side, nobody knows at this point whether you'll need it. Same thing last summer for statewide offices of treasurer and secretary of state and so forth. You just don't know if there's going to be a primary challenge for the major party candidates in their own party or not when you set our budget. So you put that money in later. we try to cover the incidental parts of ballots and so forth from existing money, but there's a lot of people we have to hire to run that, particularly when it's both parties, because you have twice as many poll workers then, and that we can't do that out of regular money. So we have to have the primary. So we come back to you for for that personnel, those salaries, and it's also some part-time parts of it of counting later and setup and organize preparation for the primary.
Thank you, Stuart. Questions for Stuart? Okay.
Could I just one last thing?
Yep.
We dodged early voting. It would have been in this year and with nothing in the budget for it. That's not happening until next year in 2024. We'll have a little bit of it for the presidential primary. The state has got some money in the budget to help the towns with that. My guess is it won't be near enough, but it'll be something. But we will be encountering it over the summer if there's a primary, which there probably will be beyond the presidential one for Congress or whatever. They'll have 7 days of early voting, and for the presidential election, 14 days, which means we're open 14 straight days, Saturdays and Sundays included, at City Hall. So there's going to be some considerable overall personnel expenses largely.
Understood.
Just
Thank
so
you.
you know, we're going to be working on our budget anticipation of that this fall, so we don't have to try to bring that to you and come up with it all 10 minutes after the election is over when we normally have to present our budget.
Thank you. Tom, question for you before we move all the transfer items for vote. The roughly $640,000 out of contingency that these items and the mayor's items represent. I know we're at the end of the fiscal year, but what's that leave us roughly in contingency?
Sorry, I'm chuckling. It's almost as though you can read my thought bubble. I have that number ready. Coming into this meeting, we had 1.1 million remaining in contingency. So if you round the registrar off to 100 grand, that brings us down to $1 million, and then 550 for the Mid Fairfield Health. That brings us down to 450 after tonight.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Tom. Any other discussion on any of the transfer items?
One other, just to follow up on that point, is that going to leave us in any jeopardy, Tom? Are we all finished finally for this year?
Well, contingency is generally for those last minute surprise things that aren't budgeted for. I'm not hearing any chatter of anything coming up. I still think 450,000 is a pretty significant buffer coming into the last 3 weeks of the year. So I would not put it in Sharpie, but I would put it in pencil, but I think we'll make it with room to spare.
No guts.
All right. Seeing that there's no other discussion on any of the transfer items, all in favor of approving the transfer items as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All the transfers are approved. Thank you to everybody who spoke on the various transfer items. Next up is the suspense list. So Tom, I believe Lisa's here for that, and I'm surprised we haven't put her on at the end of the agenda again.
Well, this is a special one. So this comes before the regular agenda, but I did take the feedback and the commentary from last month, and I did move her up in front of you, Alan. I hope you don't mind. You had a pretty good run there for quite some time. So it's Lisa's turn to go first. But in any case, I hope nobody printed out the whole thing. It was 164 pages. Much of it was the suspense items, which is a detailed list of every item that's being asked, as well as the usual 70 plus pages of munis reports. But in any case, Lisa's here to talk to that and field any questions that you might have. Take it away, Lisa.
Thank you. Good evening, folks. You can hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. The annual transfer to suspense is required by state statute. And what it basically involves is us taking what you might consider in the private sector akin to a bad debt off of our receivable to give a more true picture of what our receivables actually are. It doesn't mean that we don't still collect on these accounts, because we actually do. In the case of the motor vehicle accounts that we have been putting in suspense over time, those accounts are turned over to the outside collection agency that we engage. We collect a significant amount of money on accounts that we've formerly transferred into suspense. What it does enable us to do is avoid actively billing to addresses that are bad. So for example, if we don't have a valid address for someone, rather than send a bill and then another bill and a delinquent notice and so forth, by placing the item in suspense, it allows us to not do that and to conserve the resources that are entrusted to our division. There are some accounts that we will never collect, and those are typically when the vehicle is gone, the individual has passed away, in cases where a business has gone out of business and there were no assets to seize. Typically, you'll see over time, there'll be several years of accounts that are on that list when we've tried to pursue a business and discover that they have moved or left the city. So in some years, the transfer is a larger amount. This is a smaller amount than in some years because basically we haven't had as much time to work on it. We've been occupied with some other things. This is also our first attempt at producing a suspense list on our new software. So it's relatively new to us, but the end of the fiscal year is coming. We normally do this in either April or May, and we felt we needed to get it to you right away. So that is a brief explanation of what you're voting on. We do need to have your oversight by statute. That's why you actually do have to take a vote on it. So if you wanted to do that, I could hold off on my other discussions that I have for you. If you want me to just go full steam ahead, I'll discuss the narrative and the spreadsheet.
No, I need you to pause for a minute because I need us to move the suspense list and to vote on it because I didn't. So can I get a motion to vote on the suspense list? Thank you, Jim. Any questions for Lisa specific to that list? Again, Lisa, on our behalf, I will say the work done to get to that point and the fact that that list is as relatively small as it is, given the size of the taxes you collect, is an outstanding job by you and your team. So thank you.
You're welcome. It's our pleasure. Thank you.
So seeing no further questions, all in favor of approving the move to the suspense list as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Okay. The suspense list is approved as presented.
Thank you.
Now, Lisa, if you'd like to go into your report, that's just an update. We don't need to move that.
Okay, thank you. At the time that we were preparing this agenda, we didn't have our totals for the month of May. So we did include in your packet our spreadsheet and our narrative for April. I will be preparing a narrative. We also have finance and claims later this week, and I'm going to have a narrative for them. So basically just an update to what you already have there. In April, we were at 98.16%. Through the end of May, we are up to 98.37%. So we did go up. We're getting there. In terms of the rest of the narrative, normally at this time, we'd like to speak with you about the upcoming billing, the billing for what's going to be the 2022 grand list. And I'm happy to report we are making progress with that. As of about 5:45 tonight, we had our motor vehicle, $30 million, $30.7 million of our motor vehicle levy in our system. We are still working on the business personal property and the real estate. We're a little bit behind schedule. Normally, we like to get our bills out by the middle of June, but we'll have them out, I'm pretty confident, by the end of the month. The CFO has been working with our new vendor, QDS, and our assessor, our interim assessor, Paul Gorman. We're all on the same page, and we're getting through it as best we can. But I'm glad to answer any questions that you have, and I know Mr. Dakowitz probably would as well.
Thank you, Lisa. Questions for Lisa? Lisa, at the 98.37% through May, how does that stack up historically on a percentage basis? Are we about where we've always been at that point in time in the year?
Let's see, compared to last year, we're a little bit behind. Last year, we were at 99.24. So we're a little bit behind, but this was really an off year. If you remember, we had that delayed billing with the motor vehicle supplement. So we had a $4.3 million billing that went out a couple months late. There were a lot of things that happened this spring that were different. So we are going to make our budgeted collection goals, which is what the CFO goes by. We'll see how it goes, but this, I have to say, this was kind of an off year.
Okay, but you expect to hit budget.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
I would just point out again, if I might, because it was quirky when I first discovered it. The way Lisa calculates percentage of collection is a little bit different than what we do in the budget department. Budget department, we set our levy that we must raise a certain amount of money for the fiscal year. And as with our budget, that number doesn't change, and we just look at collections compared to that number. Lisa is more real time. So as people dispute their assessments, as settlements get made, sometimes it's decided that the amount billed should be reduced. Sometimes in future years, sometimes in the current year. So consequently, she's always looking at total collections compared to what we expect to collect, adjusted for all those settlements. Okay, so she's more real time. Tom and I look at, we have a budget number of revenue and we want to make sure we get it. As you know, we budget at around 98.6% collectability with a reserve of about $4 or $5 million for the 1.4% that we don't expect to collect immediately. So we are pretty confident, given the trends, the homeowners in Norwalk, that we will hit that 98.6%. Usually we exceed it, even if, as Lisa says, this might have been a tougher year. So just wanted to clarify, her statistics are a little bit different from what we do in the budget fund.
Thank you, Henry.
You're welcome.
Any additional comments, questions for either Lisa or Henry? Lisa, we got you out at least one person earlier on the agenda, so we'll keep
Much
trying to bump
obliged.
you up further and further, I promise.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, have a good evening.
Thank you. See you next month.
Tom, I think we've got Oak Hills is the last
That's,
agenda.
yes, indeed, that is it. And for the length of the transfer agenda tonight, we're doing pretty good. It's only 7:30, so take it away, Alan.
Last, but hopefully by no means least, good evening, everybody. Mr. Chairman, members of the esteemed board and estimate of taxation. Always happy to give a report on the month of April, which was actually really pretty. Then, if you had a chance to look at the numbers, pretty fantastic month for us. And I'm kind of new at this, but anytime I'm $106,000 over budget from a bottom line perspective in 1 month, it makes me pretty happy. So, talking about the month of April, and I'll go to year to date and a couple of other items after that. The month of April, our revenue was about $107,000 over budget. And this was obviously over budget. You know, it was a great month. It was a very sunny month, and everybody come out. Our golf rounds are up 41%. More golf rounds in the month of April this year compared to what we budgeted. We managed to keep our expenses in line, even though our revenue was up much. Our expenses kind of pretty much stayed the same. So we were budgeted to lose $13,000 in the month of April. We actually ended up making $93,000 on the plus side, which is $106,000, which obviously helps us out a lot. So moving now to where we are year to date, 10 months in the bank. And what we look at, our revenue currently is $182,000 over budget, $194,000 over last year. Golf continues to drive this. We're 20% over our rounds this year compared to last year. Our expenses are $102,000. Total expenses, including labor and maintenance and park expenses, are $102,000 under our budget. A lot of that is, we did budget for a general manager, which we didn't have that position. Will not have that position for the rest, pretty much the rest of this fiscal year. So the combination of over revenue 182, under budget and expenses. So we're basically $285,000 year to date over our current budget for the year, and $183,000 over last year. So it is obviously a pretty good story so far. And from a cash point of view, cash being king, at the end of April, we had $488,000 in the bank. Same time a year ago, we had $240,000 in the bank. So we got $248,000 more in cash this time, the end of April, than we had last year, which is always is very nice as well. Two other items I'd just like to bring to the committee's attention. As of June the 1st, we have two rental properties, or two properties on at the end of the 13th hole there. Hopefully Jim Frey doesn't hit the ball too hard and hits the walls there, or to go through balls for any windows, for our tenants. But one of them is taken up by the assistant green superintendent, and the other one is rentable. We did spend some money this year on doing up the rentable space. We have actually now, as of June 1st, leased it out for $1,800 a month. So we'll get that revenue for the month of June, and then budgeted for next year as well, which I think is a good thing. And just a couple of things. One reason I think why the course is looking so good, apart from having really great greens team headed up by Jim Shell, is that we're investing in equipment. We leased two fairway mowers and two green mowers, two brand new ones. They're much more efficient. They cut the grass a lot better. Jim is really happy with them. Less manpower needed because they're new, and these four new pieces of equipment really are helping us. So that is my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alan. Questions or comments for Alan?
I had one question. Alan, great job as usual. But how much are we earning on that $400,000? Are we earning it? Is that just in a bank account?
Well, if you say that, because Gary Leeds, who is one of the newest members of our committee, who I think was Senior Vice President Finance for a big major corporation in Stanford, asked the same question. We are in the process of taking the excess money we have with our bank, and I don't know exactly where we're going to put it, Jim, but I know we're going to be investing it in some form of either short-term, money market, etc., so we can get some 3 to 4% interest on it, and within the $250,000 worth of FDA approved, where it's guaranteed. So yes, that is in the process as we speak.
Henry, is that something that you should be involved in seeing how they invest in?
Yeah, I'd like to help. One of the things we've just implemented is what's called the tri-party agreement. We have over $20 million sitting at Webster Bank just to pay payroll and vendors from time to time. And I was very concerned, God forbid a bank closes, we're caught, and how do we get our 20 million back? What I had done previously in Nassau County is set up a tri-party agreement where the bank where we have deposits puts collateral into a third-party bank. It's securities of a type which I approve. So government securities, maybe agencies, and other based on credit ratings. It's 102% collateralized with a good custodian bank like Bank of New York Mellon. And this way, no matter what our balance is with the Webster Bank, we are protected if anything happens to Webster. But up until that point, some other bank is holding their securities. They get the investment income, the interest. So everybody is protected. We have a bunch of smaller banks where we have CDs. usually 6 to 12 months in term, but they might range in $1 to $5 million. And we're going to be contacting them to say, either you do a tri-party agreement or we limit ourselves to the 250,000 FDIC limitation of insurance. I do not want to lose any money for our banks holding our deposits under any circumstances. If you have a better arrangement or technique that would protect us, that's fine. I'm all ears. But Alan, I'd love to work with you that when you invest.
Well, obviously, we're talking, 400, 450, and we can't tie them up in two. We may look to ladder some CDs. That's an option for us. We have to be careful because there are, during the times of the month, from, November till, April, there's really very little cash coming in. So it has to be accessible.
I understand liquidity is very important to you.
Yeah.
But what I would suggest, based on what I'm hearing,
Yep.
you put 200,000 in one bank, 200,000 in another bank.
Yep.
Bank would be covered by FDIC.
Yep.
And we're good to go.
Yep. Very good. Gary Lee, Gary is my guy on there. He's my finance guy, so I will kind of work with him on it, and we'll also be in touch with you guys as well.
We have relationships with 10 or 12 banks, so I'm sure we can work out accommodations. Some of them we have relationships with because they help Lisa collecting taxes. So they're obviously local. They have branches all over. We'll work with you and your team just so that risk is minimized.
It's kind of nice to be in this situation. I don't believe it's been too long that Oak Hills has actually had any money to invest, to be honest with you. But anyway, thank you.
It's excellent news. Any additional questions or comments for Alan? Alan, thank you. And again, congratulations for all the hard work you did.
Yeah, you're only as good as your last P&L. It's okay. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
I do have another question. Can you give us an update on what's going on with the restaurant?
Sorry?
Can you give us an update on what's going on with the restaurant?
Nothing's going on with the restaurant, which is good news as far as I'm concerned. The restaurant is open. We were open. We were open for business. The menu is a little, reduced basically. There are still room for improvement in areas of consistency and product and pricing, but it's things we're currently working on. So, I think we're in a bit of a better place than we were last year. So I'm optimistic that we will continue doing okay for the season.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Anything
you.
else? Then, ladies and gentlemen, I would like a motion to adjourn.
Oh, Ed, I always can't let you go without an administrative item. It's real easy though. I talked about this last month. Just wanted everybody to check their schedules. The normal meeting for July would be July 3rd. I don't think that's practical for most people. So if you're okay, I will update the website for Monday, July 10th instead.
I think that's fine.
All right.
Looking at heads nodding, I think that's absolutely fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Done.
That said, can I get a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Jim. Have a lovely evening, everyone. Thank you for your time and your attention as always. Talk soon.
Thanks, everyone.